flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. He's a Republican dragon with his truthful slight. Fights the battles unseen in the shadows of the night. From policy to passion, he breaks it all down, giving a voice to the voiceless, wearing his crown. Caffeine-fueled mornings, the smoke curls dance. Fluffy at his feet, giving life one more chance. Through algorithms and bias, he cuts straight and clear. Michael's roar echoes in the hemisphere. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. No soundbites allowed is his ultimate creed. A dragon's perspective where facts are the seed. Standing tall on his battlefield of thoughts, guarding the truth that others forgot. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough.
Michael, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I like the weather, other than the rain, which hasn't hit us yet, but
Right.
it looks like it's coming shortly. That should be interesting since I have to walk my dog one more time tonight. So that'll be fun.
No, I got you. I remember walking the dog. Our dog passed last year. We have a cat,
Oh.
and I don't have to walk. We just got a cat a couple of weeks ago, and he's a young cat, a very mischievous cat, of course, doing things that I didn't expect he'd get to. But
Yeah,
you know, animals are cool,
not.
you know.
I'm not a cat guy. I'm a dog.
I know it's my wife's a cat person, so as you know, I have no say in that matter.
No, if the wife's happy, then you're happy.
Yes, exactly. Michael, listen, I want to jump right into it. And man, there is so much going on domestically and internationally. You know what I wanted to jump in first, now I remember, because we did this last time and I enjoyed it. I'm sure the followers and listeners enjoyed it. We talked a little bit about your neck of the woods, New York City. There was a recent election. I don't know if it was a city council or something like that, but this guy was on Bannon, and the guy was talking about New York City Council, and he's MAGA, and things may be changing in New York. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No,
Okay.
because as far as I know, there's only one Republican in the.
He had an Italian last
council.
name. That's all I can remember. I should have wrote
It's
his
a
name
woman.
down before it.
there's a
No, he
woman.
was on.
may be
He was
running,
on.
but
Yeah, he was on. He was on Bannon this week, and when I was watching him, I said, "Yeah, that is really an anomaly, particularly with New York City Council." But I should have gotten the name for it. The other thing I want to mention to you is the shutting down of Rikers Island. Was that long expected? I mean, there's a lot of problems, obviously, at that facility.
Well,
Or
I'd like to
federal takeover of it. Sorry.
Well, I want it to be reopened. I think it'd be a great location, perhaps, for illegal aliens in an interim step of deporting them. Although it puts them on American soil, so there's some questions there. But
Yeah.
it wouldn't be bad, kind of like Alcatraz, which is being reopened and theoretically would also house the illegal aliens under the federal jurisdiction. Rikers Island is notoriously one of the worst prisons in the nation, has been for decades. There's been lots of talk consistently for decades that it's always going to get closed or it's going to be changed or it's just a horrible location. It's a horrible prison. And to an extent, that's what we want. Prisons should be unpleasant. You shouldn't want to go there because that prevents criminality. You don't want to go to prison. We see there's a huge culture of that says they want to go, but they shouldn't.
No, I understand. No, I understand your reasoning there. The thing was, and I'm sure you remember this, last year when the whole Trump debacle, the trial was going on in New York City last year, and you kept hearing city officials, New York City prison officials, whatnot. Well, we're in talks with the Secret Service, and we're going to see if Rikers Island. I mean, that
No.
was so full of shit. Trump
Never
was
gonna
never
happen.
going to go there, right?
It couldn't. In fact, there's no facility that would allow, if there is a president, even without him being president, because of his security rating, his secret detail, his Secret Service detail, no matter where they would, if he had gotten put into jail, into prison, then he would have to be either in a unique facility just built for him, or it would have to be in say Trump Tower, where he would have to be detained inside that building, that property, because Secret Service carries firearms. They carry weapons. You can't take a weapon into a prison. Can't. And if you were to do that, that would cause massive security questions. Trump could not be in general population because that would create massive security problems.
Yeah.
There's a host of problems if he were to do that. So that was never real. You can't take that wasn't meant to be real. It was meant to pump up. And if it was food, red meat for the progressives, for the Democrats, to give them hope at the time that they had no hope. They had Joe Biden had just been revealed publicly, unequivocally, as a part-time zombie president. Kamala Harris had just been installed, and suddenly the rank and file Democrats found out that they actually had an authoritarian party that didn't care about them, that was determined to do what it wanted, regardless of what the rank and file may have wanted. And so we were in that window, and that's when they started saying those things. They weren't real. They were never real.
No, I got you. Michael, let me ask you a question, sticking here with New York politics. And I don't know if you and I got a chance to discuss this. It's been about a month since you've been on. About Letitia James. I had an investigative reporter, author, Jack Casho, on here a few weeks back, and him and his partner had read all the mortgage documents in New York City concerning Letitia James from quite a number of years back, where apparently she had her father on a document as her husband, things like that. And maybe that's fairly common. I don't know. It sounds fraudulent to me. But my question to you, Michael, is there's currently an FBI investigation, I believe, into Letitia James. Does that investigation have legs?
Yeah, she's a criminal. She's going to go to jail. And I say that definitively because the original document, when she was 20 years old, with her father claiming that he was her husband to get her first property, a lot of people will forgive that. One, we're talking about 30, 40 years ago. So it's irrelevant in terms of time. In addition, he was helping his daughter to start her career. And I think most of us would, if any of our parents would do something of a similar nature to help their child start their career in their life. So that's fine. It was really no harm, no foul. The problem is what she's being investigated for is what happened while she was prosecuting President Trump for his supposed 34-ish items of fraud. His one signature that transferred into 34 acts, according to Letitia James. Well, while she was doing that, she literally in Virginia was purchasing a property where she told Virginia in the official documentation that she was a resident, that was her primary residence that she was buying. Now, she knows, as the attorney general and as an attorney, she knows that her residence was in New York. If it wasn't, she would have to give up her position.
Yeah.
She could not be AG of New York. So the fact that she actually put that document, signed that document, wrote that down, that was a fraud. She committed a crime, and she knew she committed a crime. She didn't expect to be held accountable for that crime. So yes, there's an investigation. Democrats are very upset because they like to believe that their elected officials, their leadership, are above the law, that they're separate of the law. And we see that with Justice Dugan. We see that with Letitia James. We're seeing that now with James Comey. even with the mayor of Newark. I'm trying to remember his name. Baraka, that's his name. Ross Baraka, the mayor.
Yeah, we're going
of
to talk
Newark.
about that in a minute.
Yeah, they think they're all above or separate of the law, but they're just U.S. citizens. Just because they hold an elected office doesn't mean that the law doesn't apply to them. So all of these individuals are going to be held accountable. They're going to go to jail.
Well, this is good. And Michael, you wouldn't characterize this as retribution from the Trump administration. I mean, these are legit charges. Am I right?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's retribution. I'm going to look at you and see what you have done because you attacked me unfairly. Okay. And if you've done nothing wrong, what's the problem? See, in each and every one of these cases, and again, the Democrats are trying to deflect. They're trying to give a justification. Well, Trump's coming after him because he doesn't like them. Yeah, but if they didn't do a crime, there's no problem. They can't touch them. They committed crimes. These are crimes that have been done, and whether he likes them or not, it is a crime. End of the story. Doesn't matter who he likes or who he doesn't like. And therefore, they should be held accountable, especially because they're elected officials. They knew what they did. These are all active crimes. They actively did something they knew was breaking the law, and they're in a position where they were fully aware of the consequences of that law, and they did it anyway. Therefore, they telling me, oh, well, Trump, I don't care. Trump could be having a party on each and every one of these. It doesn't matter. That doesn't change the fact that there is a law. They broke that law. They should be held accountable.
Michael, listen, I got to stop you there.
Go
Do
ahead.
you see any cracks in progressive support in New York, and for that matter, across the nation, for Letitia James? Is she on her own here, or is the progressive base going to rally around her?
They already have rallied around her. And the fact that people aren't talking about this story as much as they had been, it tells you exactly how they're going about this. They're trying to let the story die. They've been trying to justify it, minimize it. They have been trying to gloss it over as much as possible and to minimize the impact politically as much as they can. They haven't completely abandoned Letitia James yet because they think there haven't been actual charges yet. So I'm sure they're trying to wheel, deal, do whatever they can in the background to try and keep her and to get this to end. But the moment charges come down, I think you're going to see a lot of people abandon her because there is no question. She broke the law. We have the documents. Therefore, she's accountable. But they're going to hold on until that moment. They don't want to show weakness by admitting, yeah, there is no justification. Your feelings don't matter.
Michael, which is the bigger legal issue here? Is it the paperwork years and years ago where she said her father was her husband, or is it the residency requirement issue?
No, it's the residency. It's the fact that because what she did as a 20-year-old, no one cares. No one cares. It was a minor item, and it's 20 years ago, and no one cares. But when she's the Attorney General of New York State, actively prosecuting the former and now current president of the United States on charges of fraud, as she commits an act of fraud, knowingly signing documentation and making statements that are de facto admissions of guilt. Yeah, that's a problem that I hold her accountable for because she's grown. She has the knowledge. She has the position. She understands the consequences of what she's doing, and she did it anyway. That I hold her accountable for.
No, great. No, Michael, that's a great synopsis of that. I want to ask you one more question before we move on to some national issues.
Sure.
And I see if you got to be familiar with this one, Michael. The governor of New York wants to give a $400 check to every New York City resident or every New York resident.
400, 5,000. Yeah, a big check. She wants to give a big check to a bunch of New Yorkers. Yeah.
Do they have the money to do that? The state?
No, of course not. No,
New York. So what is that? Is it a feel-good moment? Why is she doing it?
Same reason why Cuomo used to do it. He had a program called the STAR program for homeowners and some renters, and you'd get a rebate check every year. It'd be about $200-300 under Andrew Cuomo, the disgraced former governor who was removed because of committing 11 acts of sexual assault, according to Letitia James, as well as killing 16,000 Americans and covering it up. And now he's running for mayor. But he would do this, and it's just a way to, basically, it's a bribe. It's a way to make the public feel good and to feel good about being under the micromanagement of Democrats and trying to subtly imply, well, Republicans won't give you this check, only I'll give you this check, so you got to vote for me. Yeah, and she's doing this because her favorability is underwater. She has many Democrats who are more than ready and publicly saying that they're going to challenge her for the governorship, and obviously she's going to get no help from the Trump administration. In fact, they are considering that she could be arrested, and I think they should, because she has violated the law. New York State is a sanctuary state. That is a crime. That is a violation of federal law. So she knows she has no friends. She really never did. She has a lot of donors. She doesn't have a lot of friends with any political acumen. And so this is her way to try and
Michael, what I'm getting at, what you're saying right here, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that. I'm glad you clarified this, is that this is nothing new coming out from any New York governor. This, as you said, sometimes $200, $300, $400. It's nothing new. That's when I first saw it. I was like, wow, what's this? But I'm glad you clarified that this is, would you say an ongoing program, or it kind of skips administrations? Or
No, it's ongoing. It was under the Cuomo administration. Hochul kept it going as well. Now she's trying to get another program, which is going to get people who aren't just homeowners, because everyone's upset with the status of New York. Why? New York, the infrastructure is falling apart, mostly because of illegal aliens, but also because of mismanagement, ineffectiveness, inefficiency, and total mismanagement of the resources. The fact that they've been driving out business owners, middle class, conservatives, Republicans. We're losing over 300,000 people a year. Now,
oh, wow.
When I say that, the official number is somewhere around 200 to 300,000 any one given year. That's including, they count the illegal aliens that entered into New York State. So, because Biden changed the rule when he first came into office. In January, one of the executive orders said the census can count illegal aliens, and that offset the number of people who were leaving. So, in fact, there's another 100,000, roughly, another 100,000 New York residents who are American citizens who left, but there's 100,000 illegal aliens that have replaced them. That has offset the number. So when I say 200 to 300, the real number is actually 300,000 to 400,000 leaving the state every single year.
That is significant.
That's over 10 years.
Yes. Michael, we're going to move. It was great. Nice coverage there. I wanted to cover a lot of stuff, New York news, New York City news, but I'm going to move on to a subject which is discussed often here by myself and others that come on the show. And I want to get what your thoughts are on RFK Jr. coming out saying he wants to announce that he'll be stopping support of the recommending stopping the COVID vaccines for pregnant women, teenagers, children. Let me ask you two things here, Michael. Is that going far enough, given what we know about the experimental injections? Should he go as far as, let's say, for example, the Florida Surgeon General, who has been very outspoken and I think correct, saying, wanting to ban them outright? Is RFK Jr. moving in the right direction? And if so, is he doing it quickly enough?
Removing mandates is always the right thing to do. American citizens have a right to choose. Whether or not any other American agrees or likes the choice that is made, we have that choice. Doesn't matter if you think it's a good choice or not. Given that this is a medical issue, and we know that every medicine that has been made by mankind has a side effect. That is a fact.
Yeah.
That is every single medicine ever made has some number of side effects, some severe, some not. And we usually find out over a period of about 10 years after they have. Normally the process is you go 7 years through
Good
testing,
point.
10 years in the public. So you have 17 to 20 years of data. And then we see some recalls come in. That's usually at the 20-year mark. In this case, because of the Biden-Harris administration and many progressives, they decided to skip the 7-year waiting phase. They decided to have a public experiment, the largest mass experiment of a medication in history,
Yeah.
without any efficacy. No, we have no idea what the side effects were. We knew they would exist because it's a drug made by man, but we didn't know what the side effects would be. We still don't. We're going to find out in about 5 years. That's going to be about the window that the side effects or the data is very clear. So anything that reduces the mandates between now and the next 5 years, especially in critical populations like children who don't need it, and pregnant women who, oh my God, we have to protect the baby. We don't know what the side effect will do. Those are two groups that I would say, yes, we should protect them. And I think he's doing it the best way he can, which is this is optional. There is no mandate. There is no stigma. If you don't want it, don't take it. If you want it, if you are fearful and you think you want the risk, fantastic. But here's the risk along with it.
Michael, were you suspicious a few years back when Big Pharma came out and said, hey, wait a minute. We're not going to give you all the results of the testing and the protocols for 75 years. Didn't that was that alarm bells going off in your head when you heard that?
I have videos that, well, some of the videos are still up where I was publicly making the same argument that I'm making right now, which is a medically sound, a scientifically sound argument. These are scientific facts. I've dealt with pharmaceutical, from my experience as a stockbroker, I would follow many pharmaceutical companies and the stages that they would have to go through to get FDA approval, and then what would happen after that. That was very important financial data, because knowing whether a drug would get approved, what kind of side effects it was happening, that would affect, of course, the sales and therefore the stock price. This is why I learned about that. I'm not saying I'm some kind of medical official. I'm not. But that's how I came to know about the process. And to say that that we can't have that discussion, whether from a financial aspect that leads me to it or just from pure curiosity. Oh, well, you have to. The worst thing that I ever heard, which I thought was really ridiculous and should have made everyone have a red flag. The science is settled. That's insane. That's not the definition. The definition of science is the eternal quest of questions. We get an answer and then we ask another question because there's more to know. There's always more to ask. There is no such thing as settled science. Anyone who tells you the science is settled has an agenda, always. And that has been the rule of scientific method, the scientific reporting and data and experimentation. That's why we do all these things, because it is never settled. And anyone tells you otherwise, again, they have an agenda, and that agenda most likely isn't in your favor. That's why they're lying to your face.
Well, Michael, look, Big Pharma, because of the money, their tentacles obviously are everywhere. And I don't know if I said this to you over the times you've been on the program, that before Elon Musk purchased Twitter, I merely said back in 2021 or 2022, I said, do you trust the CDC? And I think I remember telling you, by the time my finger came off the enter button, I was suspended for a week. All I said is, do you trust the CDC? And of course, we have subsequently found out, and Michael, this is important stuff. I mean, I think people could watch the show and say, oh, MatthewJ, Michael Vass, this is water under the bridge. No, it's not. If we get round two, they've got the template for what they want to do as far as censorship is concerned. And don't think that they wouldn't try to institute the same programs they have. That's why I want to discuss tonight, because I don't want the same thing happening. Unfortunately, it's so slow, and we can get in a much wider issue with Operation Warp Speed. This was a Department of Defense operation. The big pharma was like the middleman, just making and distributing them. It's much wider issues, and maybe that's why RFK Jr. may be dragging his feet, because he doesn't want to go toe-to-toe with President Trump, because President Trump is still, it seems to me, a big fan of Operation Warp Speed. He wants to end all the Trump wants to end all the mandates, things like that. That's great, but you got to go further than that, because I know people in the medical industry. I don't want to name people, but I know a lot of people that are close to me that see the blood clotting almost on a daily basis, the myocarditis, all kinds of medical issues. Menstrual cycle, it's extensive. The knowledge out there is extensive, but we barely see it. There's only a few people out here, including you and I, that are even willing to discuss it. At this point, 5 years later, I think it has to be discussed.
Well, it's like most issues. If it's not part of the approved media, then it's something that the mainstream tries to hide, gloss over, or to obfuscate in some way. And then that's why they're having such low trust numbers. And to all the polling, the trust is not with the mainstream news media, because we've seen them lie many, many times. We've seen that they are willing to push the political agenda above the truth and then lie to us that that's what they're doing. It would be one thing if they were being honest. It's like, Mike, you got a Republican view of a lot of things. Yes, I do. Of course I do. I'm a conservative Republican. Of course I do. I say that up front. That's not a question. But again, my data is empirical and it is internationally verifiable. So when I was talking in 2020, actually late 2020, early 2021, when the WHO, its European division, was coming out and saying certain things about masks and the process at that time, was I scientifically correct? Absolutely. And yet I still got punished. I remember I got one time, there was a reporting from NBC News and NPR based on a John Hopkins report. And I presented, I had it up on screen, the report, the article by NBC News, the article by NPR. NPR and MSNBC were both saying the opposite statement from each other, quoting the John Hopkins report, which said an entirely different thing in the report itself.
Right.
And I just pointed those three things out. And I, of course, I got a content strike, and I was off for a week because I didn't, they were saying I gave medical advice. I didn't. I'm quoting medical documentation and the mainstream news media, but you can't do that.
Well, I know. Well, Michael, like, I have to ask you this question.
Sure.
Actually, I had a gentleman on last night. He's running for Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court, a very significant position. It's just below the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And when I was doing some research on him prior to him being on the show last night, I saw that he was a leading advocate for the people as far as fighting the lockdowns, the COVID restrictions in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The then Attorney General Josh Shapiro, who is the governor now, there were places closed down. For example, strip joints would be open, churches closed. The whole deal on that. Well, anyway, he was representing a restaurant that had accumulated over $100,000 fines. Either, I guess, they had their restaurant open an hour or two later, or some bullshit mask requirement, or something like that. He won the case. He won the case. But what he said to me later in the discussion, Michael, he said there are dozens and dozens of cases on the docket in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for businesses that are still trying to get their liquor licenses back, and all kinds of business. So the litigation continues. I thought, and maybe you can clarify for the audience, Michael, that I thought that was all emergency authorization, whatever they declared a temporary emergency. I thought that's in the rear view mirror, but apparently the litigation is going strong, and all those actions, and it's probably not just in the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's probably in a lot of other states that businesses lost, as you know.
Well, there's always
businesses.
There's always a consequence, and there's always a carry-on for any law and any legislation that's done. So in terms of law, many liquor licenses, depending where you are in various states, but generally they would say that if you have a violation, if the state has closed you down, you are in danger of never getting that liquor license back. It doesn't matter if it was right or wrong. The state closed you. Therefore, they have a bias against you from ever getting that liquor license back. And
Good
there are
point.
many rules and similar consequences for other businesses where now they have been tainted because their license was affected, their ability to speak to the public was somehow hindered or impeded by these regulations that now we say are absolutely ridiculous, but then we're said you can't question them.
Yes.
And so we have a lot of, and the courts move very, very slowly. It's realistically, it's only been 3 years since 2022 when we really started seeing things open up, and many things didn't fully open up until 2023. So we're talking about 2 to 3 years. It's not a long time. This isn't ancient history. People like to make it seem like that because they tend to forget things within 3 months.
Yes.
But the reality is we're only talking about 2 to 3 years ago. This isn't ancient history, and these things are in the courts, and courts can take up to 5 years. So this is current legal matters. We haven't seen all the consequences of this, and there will be more businesses that are going to continue to suffer. More businesses will close as a consequence of what happened in 2021, 2022. We just haven't heard the media account for that. Why? Because that makes Democrats look bad.
Yes.
It makes Joe Biden and Kamala Harris look bad, and therefore they may not vote Democrat in the future, so the media won't talk about it. It's not a popular topic.
Michael, what was their criteria for
Mhm.
essential services or essential businesses? I mean, that was all over the place. And the attorney I had on last night running for Commonwealth Court in PA, he told me, and I got to remember, I got to listen to the program again I did last night. He says, wasn't it convenient some of the governor's relatives' businesses were declared essential? I can't remember exactly what they were, but the politics, like you said, the politics reeked all over this, man. And people, yeah, you saw this, Michael. People that had businesses that were generations and families were shut down forever. And I know what you said, Michael, and this is an important point. I want to bring it up again. What you said, it doesn't matter if they shut you down, liquor control, whatever. They're tarnishing your business, and it may affect your your litigation trying to reopen your business. So yeah, it's a big mark, and it was such a disturbing time in American history. But my concern and my question again to you, Michael, is we could still get hit with round 2 of this. We don't know what's going to happen.
Not really. Not the same way. The same things wouldn't happen again. But you could see, like everything that happens, the first time is the big shock, and then we adjust and things are changed. It's tweaked. We saw that with some election mail-in voting, the manner in which mail-in votes are done, the manner in which laws that affect elections, how they get put through the judicial system. There were things that were done under emergency, which were largely found to be unconstitutional and reversed. And now there's a new process. Many of these legislations that were done in emergency powers have been reinstated under normal powers through the regular judicial system. So could the same thing happen? No, but something similar? Maybe. The big question is, if there's going to be another claim of a global incident, a global crisis, the public now is somewhat inured against that messaging, and they're going to ask the question. More people will ask the question of what is really the nature of this. We need more details. We need more data to back that up. We can't just believe because we've been lied to consistently. We need to see the proof. And in countries like the United States, which is pretty much unique in the world, you will hear people fight back against that because people say, I need overwhelming evidence to agree with you. And you won't see the same levels. We had in 2020, 2021, we had about 80 percentile of compliance, which is insane because of the fear. And I don't think you would ever see that again, but you could get 60%.
Michael, listen, I'll agree with you partially that we may be a little wiser. But when I look back, I learned a lot of lessons. When I look back at what was happening, let's say in Western European capitals during the height of the COVID restrictions, and there were demonstrations, some of them pretty large. And then I look what was happening here in the United States. Little to no pushback. So as I said, I partially agree that
no, there was pushback. See, you're wrong, man. I remember I was the only one who did it in central New York, Broome County. I covered 4 different protests, including doctors and nurses who were part of the protests against what was going on, the restrictions and the medical and mandates at that time. This is 2021. I covered all 4 of them. I was the only one. Not that the news media would not come out. We had over a couple thousand people at each and every one of those events, a couple thousand people. And the mainstream news media would not cover this.
What are we talking, Mike? What time frame? 2021? When? Around then? 2022, maybe?
It was 2021.
Okay. No, I'm not doubting that was happening. I don't know. I guess what I'm thinking, I'm not saying what was going on. That protest was good. That any amount of protest. I guess what I was kind of referring to on a grander scale, 100, 200,000 people. Letting the powers that be closing down cities, whatever, just showing that they're not happy with the COVID lockdowns. I hope if this happens again, and I don't know. And here's the thing, Michael. Back in I'm gonna go off a little bit on a tangent. Back in 2018, 2019, I said to myself, there's no way the Democrats are going to win in 2020. It's just their agenda. It's no sane and rational person would vote for it. Lo and behold, what do we have? We have the release. We have a bioweapon release, and then subsequently we have the mail-in ballot fiasco. Unsupervised Dropbox. You've done it. I know you've done it ad nauseum on your programs. And I'm thinking to myself, Michael, you look where the Democrats are now as far as the lowest rating, and just completely nuts. They want to bring terrorists back to the country. All this, and you say, you know what, Matthew J. There's no way a Democrat's going to ever get back in the White House, not for the foreseeable future. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. I'm actually worried about the midterms, and I'm worried about 2028 because the Democrats have got this unholy alliance with the deep state, the globalists, all of them. The Democratic Party 20, 30, 40 years ago are not the maniacs that you are seeing running around now. And they will try to get power back any way they can.
Okay, but you're conflating a couple of things in there, and a lot of people are, both for and against. But the reality is, will Democrats probably win the 2026 midterm elections? Yes. Is that because they're so great? No. It's just the normal process. It is normal.
I know that
one of the houses, well, the mainstream media doesn't, or at least they're not telling anyone. They're making it seem like, Democrats are going to win because America rejects Trump. No, it's just this is the normal process. When we have a very strong win for a party in the presidential year, then the midterm normally has a slight reversal of that readjustment, and one of the houses, either Senate or the House, usually flip to the opposing party by a slim margin. That is what normally happens.
I know.
Every single president, first and second terms, it's normal. But but it's the wording that goes along with that. I mean, in 115 days, we have heard that Trump's going to put us into World War III, that women have lost all their rights, Black people are going to be put into chains, Trump's going to deport Americans to El Salvador. I've heard every horror story you could possibly imagine. And that is because Democrats feel that this normal trend of this minor reversal isn't going to happen this time. Why? Because Trump is actually effective. He is being efficient, effective, and most importantly, he is actually living up to the promises that he gave on the campaign trail. Whether you like them or not, you can't say that about Obama or Biden or Clinton. You can't even say that about Bush 1 or Bush 2. They didn't do it, but he is. And that is the thing that's making a very big difference. And that's why you're seeing the Democrats are trying to front load everything negative. Just because, and by the way, just because Democrats, if history is correct, and they get a 218 to 220 to 218 seats in the House, a two vote margin, that doesn't mean they're going to win in 2028. That has nothing to do with it. That just means that the agenda for the Trump administration would be slowed down, which is why everything has been so front loaded with executive orders. And we were talking about that last time. And that's why you're seeing so much impetus put into getting as much done ahead of the midterm elections, because this is a process. Everyone knows, everyone in politics knows this happens. Everyone knows this is clockwork, the way this tends to happen. And so he's trying to get everything done that he can, so that when his agenda slows down, truly slows down in the second 2 years of his term, well, most of the heavy lifting has already been done. That's what we're generally seeing. But I see Democrats are in trouble. I mean, think about what they're dealing with. They got Letitia James. She's going to probably go to jail. Why? She's a criminal. We see Jake Tapper now has flipped on the Biden administration, putting out a book saying, hey, I just found out that, Joe Biden was a zombie part-time president. No shit. We all knew that. And you're seeing people like Judge Dugan, who got arrested. Why? She's trying to say, I'm completely innocent. I have immunity for breaking the law. In fact, the fact that she's claiming that she has immunity is telling you that she knows she broke the law. And she's just saying, but I have an excuse. I have a justification. There isn't one. That's not correct. And you're seeing these kinds of cases coming out, and everyone's saying, you know what? There's nothing there with the Democrats. Authoritarianism, yes, lots of that, lots of promises, nothing else. There is no substance to what they're providing. And I mean, think about, we were going to talk about New Jersey. I know you want to bring it up about Mayor Ross.
Well, yeah, let's get into that right off the bat, Michael, with the incursions into the Newark, New Jersey ICE facilities. The Democrats are saying they have a right to go in there and see the status of the people that are incarcerated in there or being held in there. Now, is that part true?
With qualification, yes. Now, let's be very clear. A member of Congress has the right to go to detention facilities, which is why it was so shocking when Ted Cruz tried to go down to the southern border under the Biden administration to see the children. They let him in, but they wouldn't let him record. Remember that they had one of the Biden appointees, they were standing in front and trying to block his video. And he was saying, I'm a senator. I have a right to be here, and I have a right to show my constituents what you're doing, putting the kids in cages under the pandemic, all in one big room, jammed together. So no one disputes, do they have the right, members of Congress, to go to a detention facility? Yes. Does the mayor of Newark, of any city, does a governor have the right to go to detention facilities? No. Full stop. They do not have the right, period. So if they were truly going to the detention center because they were worried about the detainees, why did none of the members of Congress actually go in and see those detainees? Because they weren't there for the detainees. They didn't care about these illegal aliens. They knew they were okay. They didn't care. They were there because Mayor Ross Baraka, Newark mayor, is running for New Jersey governor, and he's losing to other Democrats. And some of the critical with the liberals and the progressives and the moderates, he is losing in the polling. And so they needed something to lift up his popularity. And this was their popularity gimmick, to take him with them to go in and try and say, I have to save these illegal aliens, even though they're criminals and they need to be deported. And that is the proper process for them. He stepped onto the property. And I actually saw the video, 3-minute long continuous video from the Department of Homeland Security, body cam, uncut, watching that video. And Ross Baraka, the mayor, broke the law. He was unauthorized in an area that he had no authorization to be in, much like the illegal aliens they were claiming to see. And He was warned, but when he was warned, he was already over the threshold that he had no authorization to be in. He's already committed the crime. The warning is moot because he's already committed a crime.
Michael, just so the listeners and followers know, I did see some video, but as far as the Newark mayor is concerned, and I'm glad you made that abundantly clear that he doesn't have the right to go see the status.
None.
Why was he arrested? Did he breach the gates?
Yes.
Or was he told to disperse and he wouldn't? What exactly transpired?
No, according to the body cam video from DHS that is uncut, a continuous video, we can see the numbers scrolling. You can see it for yourself. It is public now. It isn't something that a lot of news media is talking about, but it is public. And what you will see is that he was already inside. He entered into the gated portion. So you have the gated portion, public's on this side, everyone authorized on the other side, and that's where the prisoners or the illegal aliens are. He was having the conversation on the side that requires authorization. He entered with the members of Congress. He was stopped. He was told by law enforcement, DHS and others, ICE and others, that he lacked authorization. There's audio to the video. We hear that they say, members of Congress, yeah, you can go ahead. You are authorized. You can go. He is not. He is a mayor, which makes him a regular American citizen like anyone else. He has to go. And we're warning you that if he doesn't leave, he's going to be arrested. This was after he committed the crime. He already entered the area without authorization. So when one of the supervisors became aware of who he was and said, no, he already crossed the gate. Arrest him. He already committed the crime. There is no warning. Warnings don't apply. He already broke the law. Arrest him because he broke the law.
Well, Michael, listen,
and then the congresswomen started to fight with law enforcement to try and either allow him to escape, which is a crime, and or impede his arrest, which is a crime. And she assaulted law enforcement, which is a crime. And I believe it was Representative McIver. Who did that. And so she should also be arrested, not because she wanted to go into the ICE facility. No one stopped her. She and the other two members of Congress could have gone anytime they wanted. They didn't care. This was about a
good
photo
point.
op, and she committed a separate crime, which was assault and attempting to aid a criminal.
Michael, are these felonies? Are these felonies?
Some of them might. I believe assaulting law enforcement and aiding a criminal can be. Depends on the degree of.
Yeah, but is the ICE facility a federal facility?
It is a federal facility.
Well, then we're talking of federal crimes here.
Well, these are federal laws. The trespassing for Mayor Baraka, that's a federal statute, 25 CFR 44411.
Michael, have charges been filed or not?
I believe I know he was detained. I believe he was arrested. I believe he has been charged.
But the Democrats no. The Democrats no. I mean the Congress people.
The Congresswomen know they're still having that conversation. They could be, and by law, yes, it would be McIver, specifically McIver. She can be, and if you look at the video, if you see video of it, she's the black woman in a red jacket, only one with a red jacket there, and you can see it. Now, what you most likely will see, and what the media has been pushing, are selected clips, which are about 15 to 30 seconds long from different angles of individuals who are showing you only parts. So a lot of people don't realize who's in the video, what's going on entirely. But if you look at, and I did this on my own show on Sunday, I took a half hour. I looked at one of the 44-second clips, and then I looked at the 3-minute long body cam DHS video. And we can see from the two different angles, now we understand what was going on in the geography. And so we know that one of the members of Congress who says she was assaulted by law enforcement, no, it was the media, the news media, and members of the protest, other Democrats that were pushing against the law enforcement who were trying to protect the mayor and the Congo McIver as they were trying to arrest Baraka. They got swarmed by news media and the Democrats, and one of the members of Congress, another congresswoman, was being pushed, and she had to be protected by her aide. It had nothing to do with law enforcement. That was all the dumb.
Michael, here's the thing that our side's looking at. And I know I'm not conflating the two things with J6 and whatnot, but you saw people that, for the most part, misdemeanor trespassing is like that, getting harsh sentences, 18 months, 2 years, or whatever. And then you have a Democrat congresswoman assaulting an officer, a federal officer, whatever, and committing several crimes, actually, and nothing's being done or it's being discussed. Even if a person wasn't political, Michael, they think like, wow, what exactly is going on with American justice?
Well, the average American isn't hearing the story. They're already killing the story. The story's dying. Why? Because now the evidence has come out. You notice Democrats came out immediately afterwards and started screaming bloody murder about how it was so unjust and unlawful, and this was criminal, and they were being attacked. And then the video came out. And then as soon as the various videos started showing up, showing what actually transpired, and the fact that everyone was rightfully being detained and arrested, then they stopped talking about it and the story died. Instantly died. Why? Because we have visual evidence with audio telling us every word that was said and how it happened and what each of these individuals were doing. And the fact is, they lose. So rather than keep talking about it, rather than let the public find out that these Democrats have been lying to them, that there's visual evidence that proves unequivocally that they were lying and that they are criminal in their actions, the answer is stop talking about it. Stop talking about it. Don't let the public know and just say, oh, it's just a Republican thing. The Republicans made it up and let's move on. That's what they do. Same thing with Judge Dugan. You know what? Republicans blew it out of the water. Let's not talk about it. Let's move on. Next story, because, they're so evil. They're so MAGA. Oh, my God, they're Trumpsters. Orange man bad. Don't you know? Orange man bad. Don't trust them. Let's move on to the next thing. Why? Because the thing we're talking about, the evidence all proves they're wrong. They lied.
I know, Michael, if they skate, I'm going to be pissed off about it. Listen, we got to move on to the next couple topics. I got 2 pages of this. I want to get your thoughts, Michael, on, and if you want to give it a grade, President Trump just is going to be returning, I guess, by midnight tonight from his Middle East tour. Mm-hmm. It looks like, if I count the numbers right, he's secured over $2 trillion in investment in the United States, some of them being large Boeing deals, some of them being defense contracts. By any way you look at it, by stretch, it looks like it was a success, although there are some detractors, people that were kind of mad that he was paying so much attention to, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and other countries over there. Michael, what kind of a grade would you give President Trump on this trip?
Oh, it was a very successful trip, a Middle Eastern trip, a foreign policy trip. It was very good in terms of business. Obviously, America is benefiting. I saw 1.6 trillion, but depends on who's counting. You see numbers higher or lower. But obviously, it's over $1 trillion in business coming to the United States, which we need. That's a positive. And the reason why he was talking to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, because they're the 2 key leaders of Middle Eastern politics. It's Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates or UAE, and Iran. Those are the big 3. Israel is its own thing, and they're not part of the Middle East Arab nations. But when you're talking about Middle East Arab nations, those are the big 3. Well, we're in negotiations with Iran at this time to make sure they stay non-nuclear and that they stop funding Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis to free up the Red Sea. And we're also trying to bring in more stability into that region. And that's what Saudi Arabia and UAE. And if that means that we have to smile and glad hand and have some jovial, a little bit of joviality in this, all the better. You don't make deals with people that you hate and you spit on. That doesn't happen. So he was very successful in achieving what we needed, which was people are very upset about the Qatar, the plane,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is a gift to the United States, not to Donald Trump. It's to the United States. It's to the government. And Congress has the right to reject that gift. That's part of the law. It's
Michael, what you just said, 90% of Americans don't realize that. Well, sorry, the progressives, 99.9 said like, oh, no, it's Trump's personal gift. What you just explained there, most people, they don't even realize that it's U.S. government.
It's because the way the media is framing it, it is actually a gift to the United States, to the president, the office of the presidency, which happens to be Trump. It is a temporary loan because under the Biden-Harris administration, their inefficiency led to Boeing not delivering Air Force One on time, the latest iteration of it. Fine. We, of course, should not accept it. And Congress should say no, and I think Trump will say no as well, because it's another country's, God knows what kind of safety features, there's all kinds of national security risks, eavesdropping and all that could be there, even from a friendly nation. So, of course, they'll say no. But here's the thing. It wasn't about the plane. It was never about the plane. Democrats can't, they're fixated on, oh, my God, it's the plane. No. The plane is a message to the Middle East and to other world powers, but specifically to the Middle East, that Qatar is part of the deal with Saudi Arabia, with the United Arab Emirates. They're one of the big boys, and they're dealing with the United States directly, and they have the good side of the United States in these negotiations. If you want to do something, you have to talk with them as well. Qatar is part of the conversation, and this is about cementing the power of the United States in the Middle East. This is about getting all of our ducks in a row and making sure everyone sees in every step, oh yeah, all of the big people with the money and the power, they're all walking in line with the United States.
So, Michael,
did
Biden just ignore them for 4 years?
Yes, he did. He did ignore them.
Yeah, and listen, I want to.
My speaker fell down. Sorry. Yeah, Biden's was ignoring everyone for his entire time in office, and that's why 17 Americans died at the hands of Hamas, being tortured and sexually abused for 582 days. Under Joe Biden, out of the 22 Americans, this is separate of the 34 Americans that were killed by Hamas on October 7th of 2023. The 22 Americans that were captured, tortured, sexually abused, as confirmed by the UN, of those 22, 17 were killed by Hamas. And Joe Biden did nothing. He didn't even try to attempt to have a ceasefire to get them back home. He built a pier for $400 million for Hamas. He spent over $500 million in humanitarian aid and building piers, sucking up to Hamas, and got 0 people home and let them die because he was trying to win an election. In 100 days, Donald Trump got the last 2 living Americans home, and he gave Hamas nothing because they deserve nothing, because they are terrorists, Michael, and they're lucky to be around. Go ahead.
Didn't the Saudi officials just say to Trump's face, how could we deal with someone like Biden? We didn't know who we were dealing with, and obviously Biden and Harris weren't running the country. Somebody was running the country. I don't know who it was, but somebody was running the country. But I want to expand a little bit while we're over there, because there were a lot of rumors while Trump was there that he was going to make a side trip to Turkey and jump in on the Ukrainian-Russian talks with Zelensky. And at the time, there was a potential, people were floating around, that Putin was going to show up. I knew all along there was no way Putin was going to go. I don't think they want to negotiate with Zelensky at all. And there's good reasons for that. Right now, if I may just add some stuff here on the Ukrainian-Russian thing, we're going to move from the Middle East to there.
I thought you were going to talk about India, but go ahead.
No, we're going to get to that. That's on my list. I lost my train of thought here for a minute. Okay.
We're going to Ukraine.
The talks went for 2 hours, Michael, according to press reports today. The Ukrainian-Russian talks, apparently Zelensky was furious, and the EU, that the Russians sent these low-level envoys to the talks.
Yeah.
So the EU started jumping up and down the room with their newfound friend, or their always friend Zelensky, saying, we are going to double and triple and quadruple down on the sanctions. We're going to go hard. I don't know if they realize this yet, and I'm not saying Vladimir Putin is a good guy by any stretch of imagination. Sanctions haven't worked. If anything, they're pushing enemies closer to each other. But for some reason, the European Union and NATO are saying, oh, no, we're going to stick it out. We're going to put a peacekeeping force right there on the Ukrainian-Russian border, that's a non-starter with the Russians. I think Trump, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, they're kind of seeing this situation. But my question to you, Michael, do you ever envision a time when the Trump administration will just say enough is enough? We're taking a few steps back from this.
No, they already have. They already did. First of all, the entire process, Russia is winning. Let's deal with facts as they exist. Not how people want them to exist, not what not what the pipe dreams and feelings are. What is the reality of the world? Russia is winning, and Russia is going to continue to win. Ukraine cannot stop this. It is just a matter of how much bloodshed Ukraine endures. Russia will win. But it is costing Russia. It costs them money, it costs them manpower. And there is an equation on whether or not that's what's the tipping point for them. We're not there yet. They can keep going. And they have many reasons why they would want to keep going. That being said, let's put that on the side. So why didn't Putin show up? Why did he put in his functionaries instead of someone high level? Because he has no respect for the Ukraine, because he's winning and he knows it. On top of that, what made it even worse and what cemented the fact that he is winning and he can do whatever he wants in this process is when the United States Democrats, elected officials, the leadership, spoke to Zelensky before he spoke to Donald Trump and told Zelensky to treat Trump like Biden, to try and embarrass Trump so that he could get more aid, and Trump kicked him out of the White House. That moment was the end of the entire peace process, where Ukraine might have gotten anything. They're going to lose everything now. Why? Because the United States was the reason, Donald Trump was the reason why Putin was willing to put peace talks on the table. He didn't do it under Biden. Biden couldn't get him to talk to him. Neither could Kamala Harris. Trump did. And Trump had him willing to, he had already, at that point in April, he had already said that he would have conversations. Now, when Zelensky left, let's remember, because the media wants you to forget, what does Zelensky do? He instantly and immediately ran. That was Friday. Saturday, he was in England talking to leaders in France. He was talking to Macron. He was talking to Keir Starmer, who's for England, the prime minister, and the EU. And they had a conversation Saturday and Sunday. And on Sunday, Keir Starmer, prime minister of England, came out and told the world, yes, Europe, the European Union would love to back up the Ukraine. We want them to fight as long as America is willing to help us. We will defend the Ukraine as long as America is willing to back us up. We're going to stand and we're going to keep giving them money as long as America gives the lion's share. The answer was they can't do, whether they want to or not, they can't do anything without America, which means Ukraine already lost. Now they've lost 2 political battles. They lost against Trump in the White House. Now they lost in the world, in Europe, with their only other backup. Everyone said, no, you still got to go back to Trump. And by the way, you lost. So now we got the mineral deal, which we were always going to get anyway. But Ukraine is doing it because they have been subjugated, because they've been smacked around and they have lost. Who is watching all that happen? Putin. They are weak. No one is going to help them except Trump, and Trump isn't really motivated anymore. Trump has taken a hand. standing way back from where he was in March and in April. So when the talks were going on, was Trump going to show up? If Putin was there, Trump would have been there. And the talks would have gone on for more than 2 hours, and something productive would have came out of it besides just a POW exchange. But he wasn't, because no one was taking it serious. Trump didn't show up. Putin didn't show up. Zelensky had to show up no matter what. Why? Because he's losing. He doesn't get the choice.
Michael, listen, why is the EU essentially what you're saying on a suicide mission? They're not going to beat the Russians in their own backyard. The Russians have been preparing for this. In fact, the Russians, if I was Putin, would be preparing, and I know it's not going to happen, that eventually if American forces came on the ground. So Putin is going to be able to handle British, French, German, whatever the EU wants to throw up there. And I'm telling you, it's not going to be a couple million people. What's going to happen, and I hate to say history repeating itself, we know the history of World War I and World War II. It looks like, are we going to have to bail? I mean, if they're really getting their ass kicked, because if they go full on with Russia, they can do damage to Russia. Don't get me wrong, those countries over there, but the Russians also can do damage to like London, Berlin, Frankfurt, the same thing. I mean, it would be really some scary stuff to watch. Are the EU leaders, some of them, like you're mentioning, even Starmer and whatnot, are they that crazy?
They're not. There's not going to be a war. The war is not going to expand. As much as France would love to have the war, they want the war with U.S. troops.
Right.
Germany wants the war with Polish troops. England would like to have the war with U.S. backing. Unless the United States is moving forward, they're not going anywhere, and they know it. They've already admitted it internationally. So it's not going to expand any more than it has. We got the mineral deal. That actually gives the assurances to the Ukrainian people that their infrastructure will be rebuilt, because we need it to be able to get to mine and to export the minerals. So we're going to build their infrastructure, which they desperately need. We're going to provide them protection, because if Americans are there, the Russians aren't going to bomb us. They don't want us. They don't want to start a fight with us. We're not EU. We are. There's a reason why everyone else is deferring to us. We are capable of fighting them and winning. So that gives them the assurances that they've been wanting. And of course, you'll see piggybacking on us will be the EU saying, hey, look, we've got 20,000 troops in here from all of the countries combined. And maybe not all of them in the EU, because we already know Italy said, nope, they're not going to do it. So did Sweden. They're not going to do it. Poland also said they're not going to put troops in there. They don't care. So the troops that could be vital aren't going to be part of this stupid idea. But they're going to be there, and they're going to say, hey, see, we got a victory, and we're here, and we're doing something. No, you're not. It's the Americans.
I got you. All right. Well said. And I wanted to spend some time on that, and we did. Now, Michael, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. We're going to be coming back stateside here, and this was breaking news just prior to us coming on the show.
Moody's.
And maybe you can expand on this, Michael, because maybe you're certainly a business guy and I'm not.
Moody's.
Moody downgrades U.S. ratings.
Mm-hmm.
How big of a deal is that for America?
It's a big deal. This is the third downgrade of the United States. And there's more to this than what the mainstream's going to be talking about. They did it on a Friday on purpose because they don't want to tank the markets. Not as much as you're going to see on Monday, but it could have been worse. And this weekend, you're going to hear a lot of the political shills who know nothing about they know nothing about finance, and they're going to try and come up with their own stories about this. They have no idea what they're talking about. Let me explain this. So the first downgrade, and this was the one that was important. This is the one that told us America has been broken. It was 2011 under the Obama administration. That was the key. That was the first downgrade. There's three main bond rating companies: Moody's, Fitch, S&P 500. Not S&P, Standard & Poor's. So you've got those three. They determine your credit rating as a nation or as some of the larger cities. And that determines, basically, think of it on a national level, your rating is basically a matter of trust. How likely is this country to fold? How likely are they to pay back their debts? How credible is this country? That's what that basically means. So the first downgrade, which was the first in the history of the United States, was under Obama, because his policies were complete failures. And why did they do that? Because the amount of debt. Obama was piling on debt and debt and debt and spending like a drunken sailor, and none of it was good long term. The second downgrade, well, that was in 2023. Who was president in 2023? Oh, yeah, that was Biden. Why? Because that was a year into the recession that started in August of 2022. Yes, we've been in a recession that long. It didn't start with Trump. We've been in the recession, and after a year of being in the recession, we saw that, I think it was Fitch that were looking at this, and they said, well, you have no plan to get out of this. The only answer is print more money, which is inflationary, and throw it at all the problems and wait. Let someone else fix it. That's a long-term problem. The debt is escalating, and the amount of spending that Biden wanted to do, if he could continue, would have been even higher than what we saw under Obama. So that's the second downgrade. Now we have two of the three international players saying we're losing confidence in America. We don't think they are the financial giant they used to be. The steam is out of the engine. There is a problem here, and it's not getting fixed. Today, we saw the third, which was bound to happen, and this is overdue. We should have had all three of them before Trump.
Quick question on that, Mike. The timing on this.
Now I'm going
is the timing political that they waited 4 months into the Trump administration?
I'm going to get to it. The thing that people need to understand, this isn't about Trump. This is about Biden, and I'll be very specific. It's not because I'm a Republican. It's not because I'm a conservative. The answer is it's about the debt. Trump hasn't had a budget. His budget doesn't exist. We've never seen a Trump budget. This is the Biden budget that we are dealing with. This is the Biden-Harris debt, the Democrat majority debt. That's what we're dealing with. Trump hasn't put through any of his policies financially. So they're making the basis on policies on Bidenomics, which failed miserably. And the fact that now, and the reason why they did it now is because, well, the same reason why they're saying recession now. We've been in a recession, technically. They changed the definition of it. What is a recession in August of 2022 to help protect Democrats in the midterm elections. We never came out of that recession. And now they're saying, well, now we're in a recession because Trump didn't change the policies yet. He hasn't enacted any of his spending policies yet. So, and Doge hasn't finished its job. They cut $400 billion, and they're not done. They still have another year to go. So what we're really saying is Biden screwed up so bad that all of the ratings said America is screwed. The Democrats have broken us, but we want someone to blame on Orange Man bad because it's politically efficient and effective. They don't like Trump. Why? Because he doesn't do things the way they want him to. He doesn't kick the problem down the can. He doesn't make their specific donors super rich. He's not empowering their political agenda. Therefore, they've got to spread the blame. They already hit Biden in 2023, which was glossed over by the mainstream news media. Now they're going to double down, triple down. Trump did this. This is Trump's fault. These are Trump policies. No, they're not. No, they aren't. And everyone who tells you they are is lying to your face.
Well, Michael,
because this is not the Trump budget.
Will the economy improve under what the measures that Trump's taking now quick enough to restore confidence in the economy, or these ratings? Can the ratings be restored to back the way they were, or are we still in for a lot of pain in the economy?
Could the America get a AAA rating again? Yes. Will America get it? No. Does it matter which president is in office? No. Part of the reason was that America, for a long time, since about 1950, up until about 1990-ish, early 2000s, America had about 50% of the world's manufacturing. We were the manufacturing of the world. That's partially because of World War II. All the infrastructure in the rest of the world was destroyed. We weren't. So we were capable. And we also had because we have the infrastructure in place, we led the advance of technology significantly because we had the resources and we had the infrastructure all in place at the same time. That was a sweet spot economically. We're not there anymore, and we're not getting it. We need to regain. This is the whole point of why we have the tariffs, is to regain some of the manufacturing, because we're better at it than the rest of the world. Yeah. We're just too expensive. But we need to focus on that, rebuild our infrastructure and our self-sufficiency and our manufacturing. Then we can work on trying to fix some of the other problems that have also contributed, the inefficiency. We're trying to deal with that right now. We have to stop our spending because it is out of control at this point. And that has not, again, this is not, Trump isn't the problem for these things. These are pre-existing problems that he's now trying to fix. So do I think he's going to fix it in 3 years? No. I think it's financially and fiscally.
Well, Michael, listen, I want you to address, I'm listening to every word you said, and a lot of certainly valid points. I don't know if you're going to get to this, but I have to expedite it because I have a few other questions to ask you, Michael. Sure. What I want to get to the bottom of, do you think people like Speaker Johnson, are they sitting on their hands as far as promoting the Trump agenda, trying to get a handle on this $37 trillion debt? Are they dragging their feet? Are they kicking the can down the road, as you suggested? Is President Trump essentially on his own, like he was in his first term, is trying to get the America First agenda passed? Is it essentially stalled?
No, it hasn't stalled yet. As I said, he's trying to do a lot of things very quickly. I do not disagree with the reasoning, because you're speaking specifically about the budget proposal that's being offered in Congress right now that Mike Johnson has put forward, that Trump has said would be a very good idea. Basically, the tax cuts. He wants to extend the 2017 tax cuts, which have been beneficial to this nation. One of the reasons why we didn't have worse of a crash in our economy under the Bidenomics is because of that 2017 deal. But we've had people like Chip Roy who have gone against it, the Freedom Caucus, and their answer is, we need to cut spending more. They're not wrong. We have over 36 trillion. Do you know what the amount of just the interest on that is? It's insane. Interest on $36 trillion, millions don't even matter anymore. That's it. You could have $10 million. It's an accounting error. You just round it off. It's not worth even talking about. That's how much money we're talking about. This is insane amounts of money. We're talking billions of dollars in just interest. We can't sustain that. No country can. None can. We have to cut spending, and we have to do it harder and faster. Now, part of the problem is while Congress, Chip Roy and some others are saying, yeah, we've got to cut more spending, which I agree with. Congress isn't doing its part in saying, oh, by the way, Trump has defunded the Department of Education, and Congress eliminated it. He can take away the funding, but it still exists. The next president can just wave of a pen, Department of Education is back. We don't need it, and we're better off not having it, but it's still there. Money is still being allocated to the empty shell. That's the way our government works. There's still money.
Michael, do we need a $1 trillion defense budget? Is there any cuts you see in Department of Defense?
Yes, we do need $1 trillion. Yes, we do.
Why?
Because India wants to kill Pakistan and Pakistan wants to kill India. Because China would love to take over Taiwan, because the Middle East is a hotbed that wants to destroy Israel and the United States, because there are crazy lunatics in the world, and they want to see every single American, no matter your political background, no matter your gender or gender preference, and possibly because of them, they want you dead. And yes, that means we need $1 trillion, because that's everything. That's not just being able to have the ships that can fight and be able to stay afloat. Even though we have fewer of them, we have better. To have the planes that can actually get to these places and not be shot out of the sky, to be able to deal with things like there are hypersonic missiles in the world that cannot, at this moment, no nation can shoot down a hypersonic missile. There is no defense against that. We need a defense against that. That's going to cost money to try and figure out how do you take down something that goes multiples. It's hypersonic. Okay. We got to research it. We got to find something that can knock down those missiles. Otherwise, we're in deep danger. And we know that the Chinese have developed those missiles. North Korea is developing those missiles. God help us. Iran wants to develop those missiles. We need to stop them. So, yeah, it costs money.
Okay, Michael, listen, I'm not going to agree or disagree with you there. I'll leave that on the table. So what other stuff do you have to have here? As the Democrats are screaming about Medicaid cuts and other social service cuts, there's a lot of fraud there, loads of fraud. And if you look at even the bigger picture, many millions of illegals could be potentially been using federal benefits for a number of years. But the Democrats, with the help of their media accomplices, Michael, are putting that across that Trump is cutting everything under the sun in social services, things like that.
I kind of wish he was. He's not. Realistically, he's not. Which is part. And how can they have both sides of this? If they're trying to say that Trump they're spending too much money, we have a wasteful, inefficient government because we have too much debt. That's why America lost its credit rating. But Trump is cutting everything, and we don't have. You can't say both things. They're not. You can't have these two opposite statements and have them both be true. It's not realistic. Look, yes, we are cutting down in the amount of fraud. We're cutting down in the number of wasteful duplication that we have ingrained in our government. We have a huge middle management in our federal government of people that just push papers from one department to another. That's why things take so long for the federal government to do, because it's move it from one person to another, get a stamp, move it down the line, and it eventually gets somewhere it needs to be reacted on. We need to cut that down. That means we're cutting some of the funding. We're cutting some of the people. We're cutting down the amount of waste. We're also holding people accountable. Instead of what we used to have under multiple presidents is a treasury that would just sign the check no matter who it went to, even when they knew it was a criminal, even when they knew it was fraudulent, they would just print the check. Hey, sign the check and give them the money. Didn't matter. Now we don't do that. That means there's less money going through that system. That doesn't mean that people are losing everything. They want you to hear fear and doom and gloom because that's all they can say. Because they'll say, orange man bad, aren't you afraid? Vote Democrat. That's the only answer. Your only savior is vote Democrat. That's why they make it seem so bad. It isn't. What is being proposed is necessary. The problem is we have a bad economy with a incredibly bad fiscal structure that has to be remade, and that means pain. Why do we have tariffs, and will tariffs increase the amount of some goods? Yes. Do we need it? Absolutely. Why? Because we have to force people to make things in America and buy American. It's important for not only for our national security, it's important for our economy. We cannot continue the way we have. And so we have to do this. And that means because we've let this go on for decades, this isn't just one president's problem. This has been going on for decades. And because of that, it means it's going to hurt a bunch of people. It's going to feel bad. It's not an instant answer. This is a 5 to 10 year solution. And everyone's going, but tomorrow it's not fun. Of course not. It's a 5 to 10 year window. And if you're looking at the policies in a 5 to 10 year window, you see the benefit. If you're looking at what's going to happen next Tuesday, who cares? Yeah, it's going to be bad. Okay, whatever.
Michael, I agree with you. And I know this is a whole different discussion, but you and I know it, and you've been doing this for quite some time, that the attention span of the average American is kind of limited. I know you're talking about 5-10 years, and yeah, that's what it will take. I just want to do one quick follow-up, Michael, because I do want to move on to the Supreme Court after this. I talked to you about Moody's and the downgrade was that. Your expectations Mondays. I'm not a business guy, Michael. I'll tell you that right up front. Do you expect is the bond market? Are we going to see some strange things Monday? Are we going to see some big surprises come Monday morning? What do you expect?
If you know anything about finance, no, but everyone else will be, and they'll be talking about doom and gloom. And just like, remember, what was it, March into April? They were, when the tariffs first came out, they were saying, "Oh my God, you're going to lose everything." And if you just sat back and waited a moment, you made money. In many cases, many people made money because the prices went down because everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's the end of the world." No, and then everyone who's smart said, "Well, actually, America's going to be here in 5 years, so it's really not that big a deal." Yeah. And suddenly the market came back. Oh my God. And you're going to see the same thing Monday. The world is ending. Trump has ruined it. America can't pay any of its bills. And in about a week or two, we're going to suddenly realize, oh, yeah, America's paying the bills just like normal. This isn't a Trump issue. This
Michael, real quick, getting back to the tariffs and China, and I know there's been a better resolution in the last week or two, but there are a lot of officials out on the West Coast saying that, at least for a month or two, because the Chinese essentially stopped sending their ships, according to some of these international tracking the shipping. Will there still be a temporary impact as far as employment with railroad workers, longshoremen, dock workers, and the West Coast for what initially happened when Trump went 145% tariffs with China? Are we still going to see problems, let's say, on the West Coast as far as jobs, or did they really get the trade war was diminished between China and America, that the impact would be minimal at most?
Well, again, it's relative to your frame of reference and how much time you're talking about. Will there be an impact? Yes. Will some people lose jobs? Will there be some extra expenses? Absolutely. Because it was going on for a couple of weeks. Yeah. So you're going to see an impact that hit businesses. It's going to be in the economy. But again, that's short term. That's temporary because we now have the deal and a lot of that has changed. The environment doesn't exist anymore. So that isn't continuing. So you're going to see that. You're going to see initial action and then a reaction. It's kind of like what you're going to see on Monday. Oh, everyone's going to freak out. They're going to be told the world is ending. People are going to sell like crazy. Market's going to drop. And then everyone's going to sit back and go, yeah, but America's going to be here in 5 years. And so they're going to reevaluate and the money's going to go back into the market and prices are going to go back up. It's kind of the same thing in terms of the China tariffs. There will be more action by these tariffs. We already know there's a deal with England. We know that there's a deal with several countries in the Middle East. We're working on deals. I expect a deal in India and in Pakistan as part of why they decided to stop fighting to get to the ceasefire that they're having right now. Part of that, I'm sure, is financial. So you're going to see deals are being made. That was the point. We just had to survive through some of the pain. I said it from the day one. China cannot withstand the pain of the tariffs. America, we won't like it. It'll hurt us. It's hurting China 10 times as much. They had to make a deal. It was just a matter of how much pain can they withstand until they made it, because it's going to have a larger impact on them. But it's not going to be fun for us.
Michael, wasn't the United States trying to make other agreements if this would have went full blown with countries like Vietnam as far as getting more goods?
Vietnam is just another waypoint for China. So that's why you've heard some negativity in the conversation about Vietnam. Them, Thailand, Cambodia are seen very often. They have a lot of dummy companies, which are there just to represent China without saying China. And we know that, which is why the negotiations aren't as instantaneous. I mean, they were some of the first countries to say, no, we'll do whatever you want. Yeah, but what you're really saying is China's saying that. This is China's way to use you to skip out on the tariffs and avoid the pain that we need them to have to make a better deal. And that's why we didn't immediately take that. Now you'll start seeing other nations, more of these nations, making deals because they need us. We are still the economy of the world.
No, I agree with you there. I certainly agree with you. Listen, Michael, I want to move on to what transpired. Another thing besides the Moody's downgrade, just prior to you and I coming on the air, or maybe several hours, Supreme Court voted 7-2 today that the Venezuelan terrorists can stay and there'll be a due process. That Trump can't use the Aliens Enemies Act.
Oh, mhm,
It's going to get kicked back to the Fifth Circuit Court in Texas. There's been a lot of talk, Michael, that the Supreme Court goes on hiatus at the end of June. They take off apparently like close to 3 months.
mhm.
That if this situation with MS-13, the Venezuelan gangs and what have you, terrorists, is not resolved, that President Trump may take executive actions that are afforded to him under Article 2 and just go ahead on his own as far as deporting all these criminal terrorists. What do you see happening in the next couple months?
Well, one, the president does have the right and is authorized to mass deport any group of people, any class of people. That's fact. He has a right to enforce the law of our nation and the laws as they exist, whether Democrats always forget this. He's enforcing laws that already exist.
Yeah.
So if you're upset, you should be upset about the laws that Democrats passed previously, because that's what he's using. He's not creating new powers or new laws. He's enforcing the ones that already exist. Right. I agree that he has the power and should mass deport, and he has been doing so. I agree that illegal aliens that are deported are not our problem. I don't care what happens to them. There's some talk about sending them to Kuwait and let the Kuwaitis deal with them. There's some talk about some other locations besides El Salvador. And quite honestly, I don't care. They're not our people. They're not our problem. If the other countries that these people belong to, if they want them, tell us, we'll fly them to wherever they need to go. But if no one's claiming these people because they're criminals, very often, they're violent criminals, and their own societies don't want them back, like we saw initially with Colombia, the answer is, okay, we'll send them to wherever someone will take them because they're not our problem. Not our problem. The Enemies Act is not necessary for everything I've just said. And the American people accept and we understand there is immigration law. There is a violation. No, illegal aliens don't get the same due process as an American citizen. They don't. Even though the left would love that, they don't. They don't get trials. They get hearings. Very big difference. By the way, Democrats signed this into law. This is something that they approved of. This is what they thought was the right idea. So they get hearings. They don't get trials. Then why do Democrats want trials for every single illegal alien? To keep them in America so that they can then put out a path to citizenship so that they can become second-class citizens dependent on Democrats so that Democrats can have power. That's the process Democrats want. The longer they keep them here, the easier it is for them to then have control through these economic slaves, because that's what they're creating. I don't care that they go to, but we're sending them to a prison. I don't care.
You know, Michael, in the case of the MS-13 individual in El Salvador, that and he's an El Salvador national. The president of El Salvador, that's at his discretion if he wanted to release him, right? And he's not.
Yeah, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a criminal in El Salvador. That is his home country, and he broke the law in his home country. By the way, people forget this. He was caught in America more than once. He was found in the hearings. He had his hearings. He had his review, and he was found to be deportable by 2 judges. And then he claimed asylum because a gang in his home country that didn't like the gang he was in, MS-13, they were going to kill him because he's a criminal in El Salvador. This is not an American problem. But we decided we would give him asylum because he would get killed in his home country for his own criminal actions in his home country. I don't know why we care, but okay. That gang no longer exists. So the reason for his asylum, which is that gang that doesn't exist anymore, was going to kill him. They're not there. Send him back. So he got deported because he was deportable. And whatever El Salvador does with him is what El Salvador does. He broke El Salvadoran laws. Has nothing to do with America. If he's in prison, I don't care. Not our problem.
But
Again,
Michael,
not our problem.
What you described there, it's pretty close. It's pretty cut and dry. What you just explained. He's a criminal, committed crimes in El Salvador. But you've got like this Van Hollen or others that have gone down there and want to, I want to make sure he's okay. You want to bring this terrorist back to the United States, who more than likely 30 minutes or an hour later will be put on the next plane back to El Salvador. Why are the Democrats taking this is the hill to die on? It's crazy.
Well, that's the problem I have is you keep seeing people like AOC and Chris Van Hollen, and many of these Democrats are saying, oh, we've got to protect these people. They're not your constituents. They're treating them like constituents. They're not. They're not American citizens. They're not voters. They're not from Maryland or anywhere else. They aren't our people. They aren't your constituent. You didn't swear an oath to take care of the illegals in other countries. You said American citizens. These aren't. So why are you wasting time and energy and money on protecting these people? Well, they're in America. That doesn't mean they're Americans. They don't get all the rights of Americans because they are foreigners. They don't deserve that.
Michael, I want to repeat this thing that you said a month ago on the show here.
Sure.
Okay. And I magnified and amplified it. Okay. You said, why do you think the media keeps calling him Maryland man? He's not a citizen. Maryland man. And even that, I have problems with Maryland men. But that's what, the Democrats and their media accomplices, they want to bank on that the average American can't tell the difference. And sadly, Michael, for a number of reasons, our educational system, whatever, that can't see right through that. The obvious thing to you and I as sane, rational Americans, when you're saying, man, why is a senator going down to El Salvador to check on the status of a terrorist?
Well,
that we expelled.
You know what? You know why they don't get it? Because MSNBC, CNBC, ABC, CBS, they're all saying, isn't it great that these members of Congress are going to protect this illegal alien? They're saying that they're trying to frame it as if this is the positive thing, that this is what they're supposed to do. So the general public, who are only getting the headline of this, think it's a positive thing, that this is a good thing. They keep trying to make it seem like, these men, 100 of there's Yale, 3 Yale professors put out a New York Times video saying how they're going to leave America because they think it's too fascist here. They're stupid. And one of their arguments is, well, Trump's taking hundreds of men and deporting them. No, they're not just men. They're illegal aliens. He took hundreds of illegal aliens and legally and deported them as the law allows. But it's the difference in the wording of those images. That's why people don't understand, because they're being told by the media that have a political agenda and won't tell them this is our political preference.
Yes.
They're saying, oh, no, this is the neutral. No, it's not. This is your political agenda. You may not like it. And you can say, I don't like what Trump is doing, but this is what he did. Fine, you can say that. I have no problem. But don't tell me, oh, no, but this is so horrendous. Oh, my God, it's the worst thing that's ever happened before. Only from your political point of view. Everyone else is happy with it. We voted for this.
Michael, the law is
this.
The law, and I think you've been saying this, the law is on our side in these issues, but the officification, I know I'm having problems. I know you say that word well, that the media can do To make things a little cloudy and murky is really amazing. I gotta move on to this, Michael.
Yeah.
And it may not be a big issue to you, but I think we should spend a little time on this. It's the whole Comey 8647 with the
Oh, yeah.
seashells and what it means. Apparently, he was taken to Secret Service in DC today. He was interviewed, not charged, and released. And if you can remember, not too long ago, Gretchen Whitman had the coffee mug that also said Trump 8647.
Mhm.
What do you think of this, Michael? Are we making too much of it, or are people like the Comeys of the world and Gretchen Whitman and others, are they skating when they can essentially make these or say these things about President Trump? But if our side did it, we're going right to jail or whatever charged, where they can do it and just say, oh, I didn't mean it, or you're taking it out of context. Where do you stand on that?
Okay, so Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who's out of Wisconsin, Democrat, wants to run for president. Won't win, but she'll run anyway.
Is she Michigan? Is she the governor of Michigan?
I thought it was Wisconsin.
Okay,
but I could be wrong.
All right.
I know she's right there, either Wisconsin or
No,
Michigan.
I got you. Keep going.
She followed Andrew Cuomo, killed 8,000
Yes.
citizens in her state. But she's not stupid. Neither is Comey. They're not stupid people. You see, I had a friend who called me up about this yesterday. He said, did you hear about 8647? And I'm like, what, someone's birthday? I mean, what's that supposed to be? He's like, no. And then I understood as he told me about it. I'm like, oh, 8647. See, and that's the game that's being played right now. It's, if you're not familiar, because when you 86 someone, that means you fire them. Doesn't mean you kill them. Doesn't mean you eliminate them. Well, it kind of means you eliminate them, but in context, and I'm old enough to remember this properly, 86ing someone is firing someone.
Okay.
And that's because of a code. It used to be a code. It goes back to IBM, and that doesn't matter. But that's why we call it 86ing someone. And so that term, and they're old enough, they know that. But they know that in the modern context, for younger people, they've added on not just eliminate as in remove them from the job, fire them, but eliminate them from life. That's the context that the youth have, that they added onto this very old idea, this very old saying. They did it like this because they have deniability. Comey can go, I just want him fired. I just want to see that there's going to be impeachment. He wanted to see Trump impeached. That's what you're going to hear from Gretchen Whitmer. I wanted him impeached. I didn't want him dead. But they'll go back to, with a wink and a nod towards their progressive Antifa BLM members, and nod and wink to them, going, yeah, but you guys know, the alternate meeting, what it also means. So to people who are older like me, they go, we're innocent. The Republicans are overreacting. And to an extent, we are. But at the same time, we're not. The more politically astute you are, the more you see that there's this double edge that's being used, and it's being it's the defense as well as the weapon. So will Gretchen Whitmer be held accountable for that in terms of an arrest? No, because it has two meanings, and they knew that. Will it be as successful a political will it be red meat to the progressive base, to the Antifa members out there? No, because it is something for older people. The people who are burning Teslas will probably get it more than anyone else, but they're not the ones they really want. They want the kids in colleges. Kids in colleges don't care.
Michael, are you suggesting the Secret Service should have left it alone? I'm just asking.
No, I'm saying that they should have. They did exactly what they should do. They brought it up to public attention. They brought him in to ask him about it. I have no doubt that Comey said, I meant fire him, like impeach him. And they let him go. but he has a file and they're watching him and they're going to be looking for any other communications. Now, if there's a Twitter account or a Signal account out there that says all of a sudden him and Gretchen Whitmer are going, ha ha ha, they bought it. I really want him dead. Now that's a different thing. We've started the process. So now they have something to investigate if necessary.
Well,
they have that foundation now.
Michael, you know who else they paid a visit to, and he's making a big deal of it. And he follows me, and I've gone back and forth with him, not recently. Ed Krasenstein, the Krasenstein brothers, the Secret Service was at his house a couple hours ago. He's running wild with that. If anything, the Secret Service now just upped him about 100,000 followers. He's running wild with it because he did the same thing. But he added some commentary to the photo as well. But I mean, they know what they're doing, but we also know how nuts the left is. Okay. Yeah. And you and I discussed this at length before. We saw a lot about a month or two ago, a lot of swatting, and you're still seeing, damage to Tesla vehicles and Tesla dealerships. But if you get things like in the next 6 weeks before the Supreme Court goes on their hiatus, where President Trump decides, well, you know what, I'm kicking these terrorists out of here. Regardless, I'm not going to wait for the Fifth Circuit in Texas to make their decision about this. I'm the commander in chief. These are my Article 2 powers. I'm going to do it. He's going to have to change it to declare all illegal aliens as terrorists, which many are taking it as in the language, in the way it's being framed in a lot of people's minds, will not work. Yes, there are some like that. There's about 100 different gangs. MS-13 and Tren de Aragua are just two of the ones that are the most popular. We see them the most, but there's another 98 besides them from around the world, not just in South America, but from Angola and from Russia and from China and so forth. So there's a bunch of them. They are illegal aliens. See, I don't want to focus on the terrorist aspect. They are illegal aliens because we don't need it. That is some of the hype from the right, which is effective. And I think it's helpful in some legal proceedings when there is violence involved, when there is a gang and a history that can be tracked. I'm not against him saying, oh, they've been in terroristic activities because they attack civilians. They use terror tactics. Okay, I'm fine with that. But really, it should be as simple as you're an illegal alien. I'm enforcing the law. Get out my country. I don't care where you go. Right. I don't care how you go. I don't care where you go. And by the way, I do not agree with let's pay them $1,000. Screw you. Get out of my country. We shouldn't spend any money on them. I know it costs $17,000 to kick them out. Spend the $17,000. America is not going to be broke. We're not going to make or break America for $15,000 per illegal alien. Again, we have $7 trillion that we spend in a budget. We're $2 trillion in the hole every year. An extra, it would be something like, I think it's $115 million. Who cares? And even if it's $115 billion, you're not breaking. Michael, I know it's a lot of wonder. I know this is a very simplistic thing I'm going to say to you. If Mexico allowed millions, maybe not all of them, but millions of them to come through their country, not check their ID, passports, any type of status in our country, shouldn't we just leave them all at their border? We did. And then they got rid of them. You notice all of the, not a lot though. I mean, not in the millions. Caravans. The caravans stopped. Okay. Yeah. That part. And yes. They were roaming straight through Mexico. They occasionally stopped one or two, but when they got ridiculously large, when they had like 15,000, 30,000 people, because that's just really unmanageable and dangerous. But, when it's 5,000 people, they let them go through Mexico. They're not coming through anymore. Mexico has been. Michael, is that a byproduct of the NGOs and Doge cutting off all their funding? These NGOs that are running wild, facilitating the transfer of the illegals in our country? Partially, it's because the money's getting cut. It's partially because the border has effectively been closed. I mean, it's never 100%. Let's be honest. It's a country.
No country in the world has 100% lockdown border, but it is effectively locked down. That's why we see, according to CBP, there is a 95% drop 95% drop in the number of illegal aliens entering America from the Biden administration versus even in the first 115 days of the Trump administration. 95% reduction. We have effectively closed the border. We have reduced the number of caravans coming here. We are getting people to self-deport. It is working. We just need to keep this process. The terrorism angle is effective for the worst of the worst, but I don't think that's something we need to apply to all of them as a blanket because we don't need it.
Michael, I forgot to ask you this in our intro section.
Sure.
Covering New York City. Is it the Roosevelt Hotel still holding, like, I don't know, 2,000? It's a very large hotel. Are they still letting you stay there?
It was. The contract ended. They're going to be going back to, theoretically, they're going to be going back to real people actually renting out the hotel. The contract was not renewed by New York State.
How much was, any idea? What was the price? It must have been an enormous price tag, even weekly or monthly, to keep them there. And I guess they were feeding them too, right?
I know they had meal tickets, credit card that they could use. It had $13,000 a year that was on that card for them to go eat food. I believe they were spending about, I have seen different numbers. So I saw $750 per room and I saw $1,500 per room. I'm not sure if that's per individual, per family. I'm not sure. But I've seen numbers with both.
What was it? Is it a 3 or 4 star hotel? What is it? It's 2-star?
It was a 3-star.
3-star. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about the status of that. Another thing I want to talk about, I know it's not big and you probably don't even get concerned about it, but I like going up to New York City. I visit Trump Tower. I like Grand Central. I'm a big transit guy. New Jersey Transit locomotives engineers went on strike yesterday. And I know from traveling a lot from Trenton to New York City, that's a big deal when New Jersey Transit, when there's no rails going on. And you probably weren't in New York City. I was wondering if that affected traffic, because I'm thinking there's going to be like a lot more buses coming in and out of New York City. But it's even more surprising, Michael. The top salary of the New Jersey Transit locomotive engineer is $172,000 a year. That's not a bad job, man.
No, it's not a bad job at all. But they also have accidents and issues. But will it? It really won't increase. People will be surprised with this. It's not really going to increase the amount of buses for the most part, because there's a fixed schedule and a fixed number of buses. They don't add more. They just use the same number. They keep the same schedule. People will just wait for the next bus. There'll just be longer lines. That realistically is how the transit system usually works this. It's not the first time we've had this kind of strike going on. There are going to be a lot more people who are going to be inconvenienced. So they're going to be waiting in lines to take the buses, to find alternatives, taking cabs. There are going to be more people who drive into the city that'll be using parking. It is a short-term inconvenience. The reason why, that's why they're doing the strike in the first place. They know that it's only going to take about a week. The additional cost and the additional delay in people being able to get to work, come back and forth, the extra expense they're having to incur is going to force New Jersey officials to bend their knee to the union and give them what they want. At least that's what they expect. And usually, almost always, this tactic works because of that reason. So it's a short-term thing.
No, I know, Michael. Every once in a while, I have New Jersey Transit in my X feed, and then once in a while I'll comment on things. And mainly it was about the tunnels, the decaying infrastructure coming in and out of New York City. And I know that needs. They've been trying to address that, and maybe they are addressing it right now.
Terrible.
But I know the amount of just what I see on the Trenton side every once in a while, that it'd be a big deal. But I would say that they'll try to resolve this fairly quickly. because it still involves, I know you're saying they're going to be inconvenienced. Well, inconvenience depends on, what degree of inconvenience will you
if this was in 2008, in the early 2000s, when we had good markets and more people spending more and more businesses, anything, even 2019, anything pre 2020, this would be this would be huge money, and this would have a big impact. It would affect the Wall Street, it would affect everything. But we're post 2020. It's become much more muted. Many of the financial institutions aren't there anymore. They've moved. They've gone online, or they physically have moved to other states. You have many of the businesses have closed forever or gone online. You have a lot, Fifth Avenue. There's a bunch of businesses empty because people can't afford it. People aren't there. We had the mass exodus out of New York City as well as the state. And a lot of people, over 500,000 people, left New York City. And a large number of them haven't come back. So it's not as
Michael, you're talking about, you have all this empty retail space now, right, in New York City?
Tons of it.
Wow. I knew the flight was there, but I didn't know it was, hundreds of thousands of people just getting out of there. Michael, I wanted to talk about something before we wrap it up. I don't know how much you followed it, but this whole thing going on with the Catholic Church and the new Pope, the last Pope was progressive. Potentially this one's going to be progressive. This Pope actually went to where I graduated from a high school outside of Philadelphia called Monsignor Bonner. This new Pope was there. He's Augustinian, I believe, where he's from. And I was listening to Steve Bannon talking about this issue too, that, this guy was only a cardinal for 18 months. And all of a sudden, boom, he's the next Pope. Now, I'm wondering, and he's first American Pope, dual citizen, American citizen, Peruvian. I'm wondering, will he continue the progressive agenda that the previous Pope had? Or do you think this guy will be different? Or do you think the Vatican, like many think, is very much compromised, very much bending the knee, you would say, to globalist issues or climate change and things like that? Do you see anything different with this new Pope and the fact that he's an American, that Trump may try to establish a rapport with him? Or do you think it'll just be the same old story and this will be a progressive Pope and things will just get nastier?
Okay, so this is the one topic that I'm not well versed on, but this is what I understand of it. This is my thought process. We've seen most of the major religions in the world become more and more political, more closely tied to politics of individual nations and globally. And the Catholic Church, the Vatican, have absolutely been leading that charge. And that's why you've seen the more recent popes, last two or three, have been more progressive in their ideology and their interpretation of religion. At least that's the way it seems to me. I would say there's probably a big factor in this latest Pope, why he's an American, is they want to have influence in America under Trump. They want to have that conversation. And it's a way to, if they can have that conversation, they can inject their politics and their mix of politics and religion more easily, especially if Trump is more agreeable to it, if it's more amenable, language that's better. So it makes America look good to have a Pope, and many nations want the Pope to be from their country. It's important for tourism, for just politics. And this is not new. They were doing this in the Middle Ages, same thing. The involvement of politics with the Catholic Church is not new. And having popes picked because of politics is not new. And it's been happening since the Middle Ages. So I think that's what we're seeing here. Given his age, he's probably going to be more progressive than I would like. I'm not a practicing Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I'm not a practicing Catholic. So I do have some understanding of it. He's going to be a pope that's going to be more progressive than I would like because of his age and where he grew up. He's probably going to be more political, again, because of his age.
Michael, were
and
you
where he grew up.
surprised? Are you surprised that he's registered as a Republican?
I didn't. I've never known what.
Yeah,
well,
he's a
the first
Republican.
pope that pretty much would be voting, I guess. So I had no idea. I didn't know popes.
I don't look, Michael. The jury. Yeah, I know. I hear you. I figured I'd ask you, man. Listen, Michael, you seem to know a lot about everything, and I'm shocked you don't have a lot of comments on the Pope.
That's the one.
Cool.
That's I can't. I cover a lot of topics. That's the one that I'm like, no, I don't really know anything about that.
But Michael. It was a big event, for Catholics around the world, and particularly here in the United States. I'm sure that first visit to the United States, there's going to be a pit stop at the White House.
Oh yeah,
and there's going to be a powwow with Trump and the new Pope. I'd like things to be better. I know this Pope had a history, at least on X, or when he was a cardinal too. When he was a cardinal, of promoting or not promoting, but kind of accepting open borders and things like that. But on the same token, in the last 48 hours, he's been putting out tweets that are in Latin, like maybe he's leaning toward the traditionalist side again. Who knows? Also, as far as traditional families, a man and woman, husband and wife, he's been pushing that. So it looks like he's trying to walk a fine line now, Michael. So I don't know where he's going to go. But if we were to base on the last Pope, the Vatican had made a decision, and progressivism, and which was really disturbing, Michael, with the Vatican promoting this go green and the whole climate cabal agenda. I mean, that I was like,
see, I don't.
So that's what concerned me.
I don't like religion and politics or politics and religion. There was always some. Let's be honest. Let's be realistic about that. The world is what it is, and politics influences and is influenced by religion. That's true. It's always been true. Every religion in the world, doesn't matter which one you pick, always. But the less of that you see, the better it is, I think, because religion should be more personal. It should be more about your interpretation or understanding of God than it is about the politics of living our daily life. That's the way I've always understood it. So when I see more of the Catholic Church getting involved in politics, it's like seeing the government involved in people's individual lives, micromanaging. It's almost always going to go, well, no, government, it always goes wrong. And I would say in religion, it's mostly wrong. They're going to get it wrong because they're looking at it. They're ineffective and inefficient in the reality that most of us live. They have an idealistic agenda that they are pushing that doesn't really match the world. And that's true whether you're a government or a religion. So I'd like to see, if the church wants to say it'd be nice, it's brotherly to have a clean world. Fantastic. I got no problem with that. But you tell me, but you got to own a Tesla and you got to have, renewable energy. Now you've gone too far. Stop.
Michael, and I got to end it quickly. What doesn't surprise you that the biggest NGO bringing illegals in is Catholic Charities? Would that surprise you?
Not entirely, no.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying it's consistent with what's coming out of the Vatican as far as their view on that. Michael, before we wrap up the show tonight, is there any other topic you'd like to bring up before we close?
We really didn't talk about India and.
Well, we can go with that real quick. Now, Michael, I was following that closely. I was tweeting a lot about that, the initial skirmishes, and I know there were dozens of deaths and whatnot. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard a lot in the last couple of days. Now, whether there's been some type of mediation, I don't know. Do you know anything recent? Like when I say recent, in the last 24, 48 hours?
Well, there's a ceasefire. And Donald Trump, there are British members of parliament that are suggesting that Donald Trump should probably get a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing peace to India and Pakistan. They were escalating. They were deeply escalating. Just a week ago, we saw the numbers. 78 people died. There were 125 fighter jets in the air fighting each other, dog fighting. It was getting worse, and they were talking more and more about nuclear weapons. Both Pakistan and India have nuclear weapons. They both hate each other. They're more than willing to use nuclear weapons against each other, which would affect Southeast Asia. It would affect food around the globe. It would affect technology around the world. It's a big deal, which is why 30 countries were trying to talk with India and Pakistan to get them to calm down. No one worked. Did not work with anyone. America, Donald Trump specifically, was able to get both leaders on, and between him and Marco Rubio, they were able to lower the tensions, get them to a ceasefire. That is huge. It tells you why America is so powerful, and it also reflects positively about what's going on with Ukraine. It again reminds us, if Trump wasn't there, nothing's happening.
Well, Michael, this is also indicative of what you just said. That's the last thing the bought and sold media wants to highlight and illuminate, is that President Trump has done something peaceful. But I do want to mention something quick, Michael, which when I got a little deeper in it last week, is that the Kashmir region, you have the Indian, Pakistan. What I didn't realize, China also has a portion of control over Kashmir, but you don't hear a lot about it. I do believe, was there a Chinese Indian war? Or was it Chinese over the last 20, 30 years?
Skirmish. They were having conflict over, they still are having a conflict about not too far away from Kashmir. The border is under dispute. Rather than, both sides won't allow their soldiers to have weapons. So they use sticks, and they hit each other with sticks. Believe it or not, they use sticks and stones, literally. Because if they gave them weapons, someone would die. Literally would die, and then they'd have a war between China and India. So this is their way around it. They fight. They have their soldiers fight with sticks and stones. China's trying to be friendly with India while trying to exert pressure on it, which is why they didn't want to talk about Kashmir, because if they jumped in, then that means now that escalates it again, because they're not on the side of Pakistan, which is Muslim, and China isn't. So they didn't want to back them, and they have a problem with India, and their problem would only get worse with India, and the United States is not going to back Pakistan by itself.
Michael, do you remember the incident in Mumbai? That massive terrorist incident at the hotel. Remember that in Mumbai? Wasn't that allegedly Pakistani insurgents that went in there?
Yeah.
And that almost created something big.
Yeah. These conflicts have been ongoing. I mean, the last time there was a shooting war, this conflict was a shooting war, essentially, was about 6 years ago. This isn't unusual. It's just when this happens, you need people who are leaders that are respected. Whether they're liked or not is immaterial. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Are they respected and are they valued to speak? You would normally expect, and in this case, it was Donald Trump was the lead. Usually it's the United Kingdom, but Keir Starmer, who was involved, he was a key player, but he's weak as hell, not respected. So instead of the United Kingdom being the lead, as it usually is in talking to these two nations specifically, the United States was. And believe it or not, Saudi Arabia. Do you notice? Where was Donald Trump recently? Saudi Arabia. It was the third nation. Those three were involved in getting India and Pakistan. Why Saudi Arabia? Muslims talking with Pakistan on Pakistan's side. You got the United States and England. England's on India's side. The United States is kind of neutral between them. You'll see economic deals with both nations, most likely. But that's why you saw those three countries with the United States being the most critical factor. And what does that mean? And Saudi Arabia was involved, and that's why he was in the Middle East this week.
Right.
People don't realize how these are connected. It's all connected.
Michael, you're saying leadership counts.
Yeah.
Leadership matters.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what the world recognizes, not an installed Biden puppet regime that couldn't resolve and be in any type of resolution talks whatsoever. Trump does it. Trump gets things done. He's the businessman. And, shamefully, our press will never acknowledge that, including the recent trip he's getting back home from tonight, where I look at it, and now you look at it as a successful trip that he, it's even in
Oh,
just with the investment, but also, Michael, and I think you might have touched on this, establishing a stronger rapport with these nations too, like you're saying, an instance with the India-Pakistan conflict. Yeah, and listen, Michael, I looked at that, and a lot of people were saying, when the Ukraine thing was going on, or even the South China Sea with Taiwan and China, that this India-Pakistan thing was the thing. This is what you should be worrying about.
That one was bigger than every other conflict going on in the world. Again, for the reasons I was pointing out, people don't realize how many consequences comes out of that war. It is enormous. When that flares up, the world has to stop everything else. All the other negotiations go to the side. That's the one to worry about. The only thing that would be bigger is it's actually even bigger than China going into Taiwan. If China went into South Korea or Japan, that would be about the equivalent. I mean, it's that big. It is.
No, I understand. I understand. I'm glad you pointed it out. There was a lot of things we covered tonight, and I know you mentioned that earlier, but I'm glad you brought it up. Well, Michael, where can MatthewJ followers and listeners find you on social media?
You can't see it all here, but it's no Soundbites Allowed. As you can see, it's spelled with an I, not a Y. But if you type in No Soundbites Allowed, I'm in YouTube, I'm on Rumble, I'm on X. X is under MV Consult, but don't worry. And I've been doing this 20 years now, believe it or not.
Wow.
20 years of political commentary. My big day is Sundays, or the big night, where a Sunday at 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon, where I spend about 5 hours doing basically what we've done with even more detail, with sources. Part of the reason why I know everything is I follow over 20 different international news organizations. And so I provide the links and the sources. I show you all the things I've been talking about, because it's not just it's my conclusions. It's their data and facts. Almost every single source, 90% of all my sources are left-leaning.
Michael, and you have all the charts, which I'm trying to get up to snuff. One of these days, you're going to teach me how to start using those on my show. But yeah, I do watch your Sunday program. They're marathons, but I enjoy them. And sometimes I'll watch them for an hour or two straight, and then sometimes I'll just pop in different times during the afternoon.
Go to sleep to it, or some people take it in parts. I mean, that's fine. I don't mind.
That's cool. Well, Michael, thanks for joining us again here on the MatthewJ Show, and we're so glad that you're able to come on tonight, because you're one of probably the only commentators here that I'm throwing everything at you, man, and you're like, keep them coming. except for the Pope thing, I kind of threw you. I didn't mean to throw you on a.
That's
thing,
okay. I don't mind it. A lot of people don't realize. In the political commentary sphere, a lot of people do know of me or are somewhat familiar. And I'm pretty much known that, like, if you put Mike on a show, don't worry. Just don't need to even warn him. Don't need to tell him anything. Just let him show up, kind of like today. I'm on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just go. Don't worry. Michael, you've got like a 99% chance that Mike knows at least something about whatever it is you're going to talk about.
Oh, it's important. It's important. Well, Michael, thanks again for joining us, and you'll certainly be on soon, and I'll be in contact with you. Have a great weekend.